Hey everyone, welcome to the RotoGrinders Morning Grind podcast. I'm your host, Stevietpfl. It's Monday. It is August 26, 2024. We have 6-game MLB slate to talk about here on today's podcast, joined today by TJ. 6 games, nice little welcome back here on a Monday. TJ, what's happening, my friend?
This is lining up pretty nice. You know, we're both pretty tired and it's only 6 games, so it'll be a nice quick show. And to make things even better, I didn't unmute myself to cough at the beginning of this show. So, we're off to a hot start.
Already starting better than last time you were on. So there you go. Hope everyone had a fantastic weekend. Long weekend for me. Daytona weekend. I think I've slept 11 hours in the last 3 days. So very much ready to jump in bed after the podcast tonight. And so if you haven't already, subscribe to the RotoGrinders Morning Grind on YouTube. We're like 20 subscribers away from like 1,500. So let's make that happen this week. That's the goal this week. The goal this week is to get to 1,500. So if you haven't already, subscribe. If not, or if you have already, we appreciate you. Very interesting slate. We have some pitching. We have some bats. We have a minimum salary pitcher going up against the White Sox. And yeah, I mean, we'll break it all down here. So we get started. Toronto at Boston. They are going to play a suspended game before they finish or before this game is started. We have Nick Pivetta and Jose Barrios, 9 total. Boston a 156 favorite. Any interest here in Barrios?
I want to, before we begin, bring up a really fun fact that Cards brought up on Crunch Time Sunday night. This game has a chance, as long as he is starting for the Red Sox, for Danny Jansen to become the first player ever to catch his own at bat. So the last time the Blue Jays and the Red Sox were playing this game was the game got suspended while Danny Jansen was batting. And as long as he's starting for the Red Sox, it will obviously have to be a subbed-in batter for the Blue Jays, and he will be catching it. So he'll become the first player ever to catch his own at bat, which is a pretty cool fun fact as long as he's starting in this one. I don't really think I have a ton of interest in Barrios. He struggles to lefties, and the Red Sox are elite against right-handed pitching. He has been really good lately, and the pitching on this slate kind of sucks. So as someone who usually plays 150 lineups, I'm not ready to say he won't be in my pool yet, but I really don't like it.
Yeah, really tough matchup. Red Sox, very left-handed. Barrios definitely succeeds more against right-handed hitters than he does against lefties. He's been throwing a lot of strikes, like you mentioned. He has been pitching a little bit better here recently, but still, I mean, on the season, not generating enough whiffs or swinging strikes for me against lefties, and that's how you have to attack the Red Sox. So Cassis being back in the lineup on a daily basis definitely adds a little bit more strikeout upside to the Red Sox lineup, but still really tough matchup. So probably going to pass on Barrios today. And I disagree with you. I think the pitching on the slate is actually pretty good. Going to the other side, Nick Pivetta. We know Pivetta, 30% K rate. His biggest issue is home runs. Toronto, they have a lot of power. What are we doing today with Nick Pivetta?
Another guy, Nick Pivetta, I kind of feel like almost always needs to be in the pool just because of his strikeout upside. But I don't feel good at all about the matchup today. The Blue Jays have been, even though they have a lot of not really big names in that lineup right now, ever since they inserted all their young guys, that offense has been red hot. And so don't really want to pick on the Blue Jays ever, but Pivetta always has upside. There are 2 pitchers in that range I very clearly like ahead of both Pivetta and Barrios, but in a 150 max setting, again, he's kind of like Barrios, where I don't necessarily feel ready to X him out yet.
Yeah, I mean, Pivetta, 30% Ks. There are a little bit more strikeouts now in this Blue Jays lineup. I think Pivetta is a really interesting tournament option. But I mean, I'm not afraid to play some bats against him. I'm going to have some Toronto bats in this spot. So bats are kind of what's lacking overall on this slate. I mean, in my opinion. So let's talk about the bats here. Toronto chasing home runs against Pivetta. Obviously, a lot of interest in a guy like Vlad. He's someone that I love against right-handed pitching. A lot of power. Will Wagner, is someone that I don't mind here. Lufido, Springer, Barger, Clement, Kirk. Like, I mean, Toronto, very much a team that I plan on having as a stack today.
Yeah, 100%. This game is one of my favorites on the slate, the target for bats. I'm going to be getting a ton of Toronto. Vlad, I think, is one of the top bats on the slate. I'll try and get some Horwitz and then just all of the cheapies, like Clement has been red hot. Will Wagner is usually in a good batting position. Springer's been hitting the ball much better lately. So I'm looking to, whether you want a home run hunt or full stack, I think the Jays are in a good spot tonight. I do want to kind of pivot back though to one thing. You mentioned you thought it was a strong pitching slate today. Do you feel like there's a lot of good options, or do you feel like there are 4 options and those 4 options are very good and there's not much else?
I mean, looking at the slate overall, I mean, there's only like 3 or 4 pitchers on the slate that I feel really good about picking on. That's kind of what I was getting at. It's not like I want to play all these guys, but like even Pivetta and Barrios, like we said, you could potentially play them in large field tournaments. You can stack against them too, but like, I mean, next game we got Fried and Ober. You don't feel like uber confident about stacking against those guys. We're going to talk about Pepiot and Miller in that game. Obviously, those guys are in a phenomenal spot against each other. So kind of more of like hitting is a lot more scarce today than pitching. I think there's plenty of pitchers you could roll out in a large field tournament today. Boston bats, like I don't necessarily love stacking against Barrios, but again, I think hitting is kind of limited on this slate, so I have no issues stacking the Red Sox against Barrios today.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think they're going to be one of my top stacks on the board just because if you're going to pick on Barrios, it's with those lefty bats. I mean, he's been pretty close to even with like throughout the year to righties and lefties. It hasn't been a big difference. Like historically, he's usually a little bit worse to them, but he's had a fairly neutral split this year. But still, Red Sox against righties, I just kind of want to play all the time. Duran, Abreu, Casas, Devers, Yoshida. These lefties are all fantastic, and then you got O'Neill in there as well as an option. So I really like the Red Sox and the Blue Jays as stacks today.
All right, moving on. We have Atlanta at Minnesota. 8 total straight pick'em game. -110 both sides. Max Fried, Bailey Ober. In this one, we'll start here with Max Fried. Kind of saw him pitch a little bit better last time out. The command was a lot better, only 1 walk. Really kind of what we expect from Max Fried. Good command, generate ground balls, doesn't typically get blown up. Like, Minnesota is a team that I definitely prefer left-handed pitching against if I was going to play anybody, but I just don't know if Fried has that like ceiling we're necessarily looking for at 8,700, but I don't necessarily hate him in this spot.
Not to bury the lead for the rest of the things we're going to talk about for this game, but I kind of just want to exit out. It's 2 good offenses. It's 2 good pitchers. I don't want to play Fried against Minnesota. He's kind of right in the Barrios and Pivetta tier, though, where it's like, you can. I don't want to, but you can. But I don't really want to play these offenses against them either. Might as well just kind of include a couple stacks of them if I'm running a lot of lineups because it's only 6 games, but I really don't like it. I kind of just want to pretend this game isn't on the slate.
See, I like Ober today. I don't think Ober is going to be as chalky as like Pepiot and Miller in the late games. So I actually have some interest in Bailey Ober today. Atlanta, they present a lot of strikeouts against right-handed pitching with all the injuries they have in this lineup right now. And Bailey Ober is a guy that's capable of 30-plus fantasy points. I mean, we recently have seen him go all the way up past 40 fantasy points. So 26% Ks on the season, 28% over the last 30 days, really has limited the power. His whiff rate is way up. His swinging strike rate is way up. So, I mean, Bailey Ober, he's finishing the season as good as he was down the stretch there in the middle half of the season. So, I mean, I think Bailey Ober is a great play today. Obviously, there's risk anytime you take a pitcher against Atlanta. But now, like, instead of getting around like 5, 6, 7 hitters, you're kind of getting around like Ozuna, Olsen, and Harris. And like Harris hasn't shown any kind of power this year. So I think Ober is in a great spot today.
From a ceiling standpoint, he definitely has it. And so I would put him above the other 8K, like the 8K group, the outside of the ones the Tampa and Seattle game. So I'd put him above Berrios, above Pivetta, above Fried. I think he's a very firm 5th on the list for me tonight. There are 4 plays that I feel very confident about, or at least confident enough in for their prices above Ober today. You're right. Atlanta's nowhere near as potent as of an offense as they are when we get that full crew in there, but I still don't really love taking people against them. They're, I guess, a bit like better than average of a matchup for strikeouts, but there is still a lot of power there.
They can put runs up in bunches, man. They can, no doubt.
Yeah, and so I agree with you 100% from a ceiling perspective, but I think just due to prices, not that we have a lot of bats to spend up for anyways, he's very easy to get to. I think I got Ober 5th on my list tonight.
And someone in chat mentioning that Harris got banged up on Sunday, so I didn't even necessarily see that.
I didn't either.
So he is likely not going to be. He got hit by a pitch in his hand. Like Harris might not even be in the lineup. So you're really just that adds potentially like Laureano, who has a massive strikeout rate. Like it could only it like realistically might only be like Ozuna or Olsen. So I mean, yeah, like. We play DFS nowadays too, like way more tournament driven than we do like cash game driven, especially this time of the baseball season. So like, I think you're chasing ceiling even more on a 6-game slate than you would on an 11-game slate. So, I mean, that's why I like Ober a lot today. Atlanta bats, any interest here in Atlanta?
No. And to be honest, you've kind of swayed me a lot more on Ober as well. I think I'm going to bump Ober up to number 4 on my list today. And so screw you, Davis Martin. What are you going to do for us anyways? You don't have near the ceiling that Bailey Ober has. So I can definitely admit when I'm wrong there. I like Ober a lot more at the end of this conversation than I did when we started. And I don't really think I want to play Atlanta bats against him because there aren't many spend ups today. If like assuming Harris is out, I'll probably still like it's a 5-game slate. I'll include a few stacks of everybody, and especially if we get, Laureano and Duvall in the lineup, well, they're not going to be that tough to stack. But for the most part, I'll be looking to play Olsen or Ozuna and not really anyone else.
Yeah, Olsen, Ozuna would be Ozuna in particular. Like Ober is kind of reverse splitsy. He's very neutral, but gives up a lot of hard contact to righties. So Ozuna would be that home run that I'd chase. I mean, just if you take Harris out of this lineup now too, like, man, what an awful lineup for a team that just has so much talent when they're 100%. Minnesota side, I mean, Fried is not necessarily someone I like to stack against. I know he's had kind of a rough patch here. He just generates so many ground balls, and it's really hard for me to like stack against him. I will say this, Jeffers at catcher and Santana both have crushed left-handed pitching this season, and Jeffers is more of a fly ball guy. So I don't necessarily hate maybe like a mini stack for Minnesota because they are cheap enough. But Jeffers is the guy that I kind of had highlighted when I was doing my research earlier as like a fly ball against a ground ball pitcher. And I mean, he has a 282 ISO and a 370 WOBA against lefties this year.
Yeah, especially that mini stack looks a lot nicer too. If we get Royce Lewis back in that lineup, you just do like a Lewis, Jeffers, and Santana, because Santana and Jeffers have really nice prices for how much they've smashed lefties this year. And Lewis isn't that tough to get to either. So again, not necessarily super interested in the full stack. I'll have a few of them, but a mini stack of Santana, Lewis, and Jeffers, assuming that was just a normal little day off for Lewis on Sunday and he'll be back in there on Monday. I like the mini stack a lot.
All right, moving on. San Diego at St. Louis. No total in this game. Some of the books don't have a pitcher listed for San Diego, but everything I've read, because when I was looking at it, Vasquez is supposed to get called up and pitch here. So we'll have to kind of see if that happens. But Randy Vasquez back potentially here for St. Louis. And then Kyle Gibson on the mound for St. Louis. I said St. Louis twice, but San Diego for Vasquez, St. Louis Gibson. I pre-warned everybody that I was tired, though. So Randy Vasquez gets the call back up here. Any interest in Vasquez?
Nope, not against San Diego. They don't strike out very much, even though I hate stacking San Diego too. Like
He
they're
pitches
just
for San Diego. I confused
Sorry.
you. Vasquez
you
is San
did.
Diego.
You did.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yep.
Still no. But St. Louis also doesn't strike out very much. And also another team I don't really like stacking. But they do have a lot of lefties who hit right-handed bats pretty well. But even he strikes out a lot, but they got Carpenter batting up near the top of the lineup right now. And he's got some power too to right-handed bats. Even he always has, and at least that kind of sticks. No. Long story short, no.
I just think there's better cheap options. I'll take the risk on Davis Martin or Ty Madden before I play Randy Vasquez. I think that St. Louis is one of my top stacks today. Dave just said it in chat too. The weather is supposed to be really good hitting conditions in St. Louis for this game. So can't wait to see. I hope this game rolls out with like an 8.5 total. Kyle Gibson, other side. You were kind of talking about it when you're like, hey, San Diego, they don't really strike out. That kind of applies right here to the other side of this game. I think there's better options today than Kyle Gibson. No chance I'm playing him against the Padres.
Couldn't agree more. Padres going up against him are a bit of more of an interesting conversation, I think, but I don't like taking pitchers against the Padres, and Gibson isn't a guy overly like playing ever anyways.
Yeah, San Diego bats, obviously a lot of interest in Cronenworth and Jackson Merrill. Profar continues to hit. This team is a team that I like to play when they're on the road, and if the hitting conditions are going to be good here in St. Louis, I definitely think San Diego's in the conversation today.
Yeah, 100%. I think Toronto, Boston, and St. Louis are all teams I'd probably rank above them, but I still think they're a very viable stack in this spot. We do still have Coors to talk about as well, but I think they're probably kind of in the top 5 spot on the slate.
Yeah, Coors on the slate for sure. A smaller slate, we could get lower ownership on like a San Diego St. Louis game. So I like St. Louis side a lot too. Vasquez, not a dominating pitcher by any means, really struggles with like left-handed bats. So if that's going to be the case, obviously a lot of interest in like Burleson. If Matt Carpenter cracks the lineup, him, Donovan, Nootbaar, all in play for me here against Vasquez.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. I think they're in a really good spot. They're one of the top stacks on the slate. Burleson probably the top option, with Donovan, Arenado being the next guys I'd target, but like even Nootbaar I like quite a bit here as well. And full stack, one of the top ones on the board.
Yeah, Contreras being out potentially gives us a really cheap catcher here, depending on who catches for St. Louis. So just overall, and that's going to bump up a hitter or two in this lineup as well. So can't wait to play Cardinals and them score 1 run today. Always happens when I play the Cardinals. Detroit at Chicago White Sox, 9 total in this one. Detroit a 150 favorite. Ty Madden, MLB debut. Davis Martin. Ty Madden, we'll talk about him first here. Any interest in him?
4K pitcher against the White Sox? Absolutely, I do. He is my top pitcher on the slate. He'll be my highest owned by far.
Yeah, so I did some digging. I do always do my due diligence because I'll be honest, I didn't know who Ty Madden was before the podcast or before doing research today. And really good slider, which is great. But this guy is getting crushed in AAA as far as like his stuff this year. He has a really good strikeout rate. His strikeouts have been phenomenal, but like he's been getting hit very hard. Like his whip is through the roof. Started the season in AA. He's pitched 79 innings this year in AAA, and he's just giving up a ton of home runs. Well, what helps that? Facing the Chicago White Sox. That helps that. So love the matchup for Ty Madden. If you're going to make a debut, this is the spot to do it. But again, like his strikeout stuff at every level since he has been in, minor leagues 2022. Every level he's pitched at, he's had big strikeout stuff. So big strikeout stuff against the Chicago White Sox is a success. I am, however, worried that he's going to be very, very popular today. Davis Martin on the other side of this game. Listen, I don't mind Davis Martin in this spot. If Davis Martin starts pushing some ownership because he's facing Detroit, I'll play Detroit. I do not mind a leveraged Detroit stack in this spot.
This is very much now. Admittedly, I came around on Bailey Ober, so I don't necessarily feel that same way now as I did before. But this is very much the opposite of what I said about Atlanta and Minnesota, where it's just like I don't really want to play the pitchers. I don't really want to play the bats. I kind of wish this game wasn't here. For this game, I want to play the bats and I want to play the pitchers. Davis Martin, I like, but I don't necessarily know that I'll need. And so that could kind of drop his ownership lower for me if I'm playing a lot of Madden and then I'm playing a lot of Ober and Pepio and Miller. I don't know how much I'm going to need Davis Martin. But I agree with you. I really like the Detroit Tigers bats against him, to be honest, kind of regardless of ownership. Now that they're healthy, the strikeout rate is through the roof. But the power is pretty darn good. Like they have Meadows, Green, Carpenter, Keith, and Dingler, and that I feel pretty good about. Jace Jung is basically min salary. So I think even regardless of ownership, I like Detroit. But if Martin does start getting highly owned, then that bumps them to near the top of my list.
Yeah, I mean, Davis Martin, someone I talked about in his last start. I think that he's kind of settling in a little bit more. The command is still the biggest issue for me. Like I watched some of that San Francisco game. I'm pretty sure it was like after a podcast or something when I was waiting for the podcast to upload. But the top three of this lineup can hit. I mean, Meadows, Green, and Carpenter can hit. So as far as like Detroit bats, a lot of interest in those guys. Who's the catcher? Is it Dillinger? Like he has been hitting. He's 2,700, and I mean he's shown some upside against right-handed pitching this season. So I don't mind him. You got Trey Sweeney if you want to punt, Jace Jung if you want to punt, but I have a lot of interest today in Meadows, Carpenter, and Green. And I mean basically every day I have interest in Kerry Carpenter. I think he's really good. I said Dillinger. Any old DFS player will know. I'm just saying. Any old DFS player will know. That's for all you OGs out there. You know exactly who I'm talking about. White Sox bats. Any interest in the White Sox bats here?
Yeah, absolutely. Anytime we have a pitcher making their debut, especially when they're going to pick up some ownership, I'll want to play the team going against them. Now, I wish that wasn't the White Sox. They're a very difficult team to full stack, but Luis Robert, I think is in a very interesting spot. That's the one I'd obviously want to target the most because he's the one bat that's actually good on their team. But Benintendi and Vaughn, Sheets, whoever else is in there, Vargas, I think they're fine. Julks, it's fine to do the full stack there against the cheap pitcher and play Ober and Miller, something like that tonight. But it's only Luis Robert that I feel good about.
Yeah, I mean, the White Sox suck. I mean, just to be 100% frank, they're awful. Their ISO for their lineup right now is under 100. Their WOBA is like 250. Their strikeout rate's 23%. They are awful. If I am management for the Chicago White Sox, I would be calling up any kind of prospect I have and just letting them get some reps. Like, why is Colson Montgomery not up with the big league team right now? Like, it makes no sense whatsoever for me. If I'm looking at this going, why is he not up with the big league club? But let him have like some reps or something. I mean, I don't know. Like, get some at bats at the major league level and see what you have in him. But yeah, anyway, that's for anybody that doesn't know, that's their top prospect, and for some reason he's in Chicago in AAA. Listen, I don't want to play the Chicago White Sox. I agree with you, though. It is a pitcher making his debut that has had a home run problem at every level of the minors. So it's just like, who do you target for home runs? I'm not playing Nicky Lopez for a home run. I mean, maybe Gavin Sheets, my boy, maybe some Andrew Vaughn, but the White Sox suck. They're awful. I mean, it's really hard to get excited about saying, hey, I'm going to play somebody. I mean, like you said, Luis Robert, if he's back in the lineup, is probably your favorite bat here from the White Sox. Miami at Colorado taking on the Rockies in Coors. No total in this game. Feltner coming back from the IL is what it sounds like. He did have a rehab start. He did not throw very deep in that rehab start. I think it was only 48 pitches, if I remember what I read earlier. Cabrera on the hill for Miami. Any interest in Cabrera and Coors against the Rockies?
I do think there is possibilities with his strikeout upside that he does put up some kind of ceiling. You just don't need it on this slate. I think there could be crazier things, but if we really needed a cheap pitcher today, I do think you could take a shot on Cabrera just because Colorado sucks, but we don't. So I'm not going to.
Yeah, I mean, for me on Cabrera, if Davis Martin gets to the point where you're uncomfortable with him being very popular, maybe Cabrera is the best pivot, but I don't know if you necessarily need it today. I don't think I could do it with Cabrera today, and I'm definitely not playing Feltner on the other side of this game. No upside whatsoever, and I don't think he'll pitch too deep in this game. So, any interest in Feltner for you?
Nope, not at all. Even if he was at full strength, I would consider him basically the exact same thing I said about Cabrera. But other than that, nope.
Miami bats. I mean, listen, I think they're going to be somewhat popular today. I want to play them anyway. My boy just keeps doing his thing. Welcome Connor Norby to getting some everyday at bats. I hope everyone has been listening to me about Norby because he's doing his thing. Should bat lead off 3,700 in Coors against Ryan Feltner. Obviously, a lot of interest in Norby, a lot of interest in Sanchez. If Edwards is back in the lineup, I would play some Edwards here, but really this is a really good spot for the Marlins. More top half of the lineup for me. The bottom half of the Miami lineup is really, really bad. Really, 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 really bad.
Yep, I couldn't agree more. I think Norby and Berger are probably cash and single entry staples today. Berger's probably the top overall bat on the slate. I couldn't agree more. I like and a Sanchez throw in there as well. Even if you just want to mini stack it, I think those three would be my favorites. Top half, and then if Edwards is in there, that's a priority too. So this, depending on the lineup, the full stack is awesome, but we know for sure the mini stack is at least awesome.
Yeah, Jonah Brad, another guy that you could take some shots on, and then. As far as the Rockies go, it's one of those rare slates where we don't have one of these top end shortstops. We're so just easily locking in our lineups every day. Shortstop, Tovar, really expensive against Cabrera. I think you could play them or play him. Obviously, always Ryan McMahon fan. Toglia is someone that I like to play from Colorado. I'm not afraid of Cabrera. I mean, it's just more of the Colorado lineup has a ton of strikeouts. They strike out a ton, second highest rate in baseball. So it's really hard to trust playing any of these guys because I mean the inning can be killed with strikeouts.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. But it's I am scared of them, and it doesn't feel good. But I actually really, really like the Rockies today. I think it's a good full stack with Cabrera walking so many people this year and also giving up a ton of power. It's interesting because last year he was a little reverse splitsy, giving up a lot more power to righties, more fly balls to righties, and he was striking out less of them. This year so far, he has been way worse to lefties with a much worse strikeout rate. I don't know why that was so hard to say. And he's walking a lot more of them too. So just because his control is so bad, I'm very interested in the full stack here. And also because it's weird to say, but I like them because they're expensive. I'm going to be playing so much time Madden, and then even when I'm not, the pitchers I want to pay up for, the most expensive one is 9,300. I have salary to spend, and so that actually makes me like them a little bit more. Like Mike Toglia, I think, is in a really great spot. He'd be my favorite bat for this team. And then Tovar, like you said, shortstop's not as good today. Brenton Doyle's been red hot. McMahon has struggled this year, but he's starting to play better lately. I do like this team as a full stack.
All right, before we go to the Tampa-Seattle game, I just want to say, like, as we get through this slate more, I think leaving salary makes a lot of sense, to be different and make your lineups more contrarian and unique. Tampa Bay at Seattle to finish this out, 7 total. Seattle 120 favorite. Pepiot, Miller. Ryan Pepiot, 8,200. Looked really well, looked good last time out. Strikeout upside is something you're chasing here with Pepiot against the Seattle team. And this should be a really good strikeout spot for him. Very much in play today.
Yeah, I think these are the 2 top pitchers on the slate. The only reason I wouldn't be all aboard is if their ownership gets out of control. But Seattle and Tampa, 2 of the highest strikeout rate teams in the league, and both of these guys are actually very solid pitchers. So I have a lot of interest in Pepiot today. I don't know if it's Pepiot or Pepiot, but Pepiot is fun, and Pepiot sounds like Pidgeot, so I'm good either way.
Hey, Pidgeot, good Pokemon. Kanto, 151.
Yes, sir.
For the Seattle side, Miller, he obviously struggled last time out against the Dodgers. Throw that out the window. He's been taking advantage of good matchups. He should take advantage of this good matchup. He's just in a fantastic spot, under 9K. Absolutely love Bryce Miller today.
Yeah, I think if I were to rank them, I would probably go Miller 1, Pepiot 2. I really like him against Tampa. Their lineup is just atrocious now. There's nobody good left in there other than Brandon Lau, and Brandon Lau still strikes out a bunch. So I think Miller's the top pitcher on the board. Love him today. 8,900 is going to be my main priority.
See, I think I have over Pepiot, but Miller is my number 1 today. I really like Bailey Ober today, and I like him even more if Harris is going to be on the lineup. So, I think any of those 3 guys you feel really good about. And then, obviously taking some shots on some of those cheaper pitchers that we talked about. Bats, any interest in the Tampa Bats here?
The only way I would have any interest is if Miller is 50+% owned.
Yeah, I don't think he'll push that much. I think he'll be popular, but I think there's too many options on the slate for pitching for him to get to that point. But I could be wrong. I've been wrong before. I'll be wrong again. I don't really have any interest
with that
in
attitude. You will be.
Yeah, listen, that's life. If we're perfect, man, what's the fun in being perfect? I don't really have any interest in either side bats wise. I think this is gonna be a low scoring pitching duel, and bullpen wise, maybe you could play some Seattle bats, but they're banged up right now too. Robles and Rayleigh banged up. Crawford on the IL. Crawford has been on the IL. I just mean this is gonna be a low scoring game. 7 total, lowest total on the slate. Can't get excited about playing bats here.
I think the only potential reasoning you could make is it's a small slate and the pitchers will be highly owned, but I don't want to play them at all.
Oh, game theory for sure. Yeah. Yeezy, the total is 7. The total is 7 for this one. Morning grind game, and then we will get out of here. Under 8K to get 6 or more strikeouts. Who do you got?
I'll go Martin here. I think he's the most likely one to make it. He strikes out a lot of lefties, and Detroit's best bats are lefties. So the downside's crazy, but I think the upside is there too.
Yeah, I'll go with the rookie, Ty Madden. Get some strikeouts here. Big strikeout rate. I would love to see Ty Madden's props open at 4.5. I don't think they will, but I would love that. Insta bet for me if he is at 4.5. Over 8K to score under 15. Who's your bust today?
I will go. I think Nick Pivetta is probably the most likely to bust.
I'll go Max Fried, and it's more of just like he's had some recent like command issues. So I could see him having some command issues here and taking advantage of it. So Ty Madden, Caesars posted his strikeout prop over 4.5 minus 169. It's so tempting. I hate paying that much juice, but 169, that's very nice. Over 4K to hit a home run, not in cores. Who's going yard today?
I don't think this is the best choice, but it's the first name that popped into my head. So I guess I'll go Luis Robert, but my answer was going to be Tristan Casas. Like, my answer was planned to be Tristan Casas. Then as soon as you asked me that question, there was like a light in my brain that went, Luis Robert.
I'm going to go with my boy Riley Green. I'm going to make him the morning grind image. So there you go. Good luck not playing him today. The morning grind image has been fire lately, by the way.
I've never watched a Detroit Tigers game, so I can't confirm or deny. But does anybody know that Riley Green and Kerry Carpenter aren't just clones of the same person? Like similar power, similar strikeout rates. They're both hurt all the time, but when they're in there, they're lights out. They're just the same guy.
All right.
But no one watches Detroit Tigers, so no one knows if that's true or not.
It's so funny. I coach club volleyball. A lot of people know this already. Our club director is a huge Tigers fan, and I give him a hard time all the time. It's so much fun. Under 4K to get 2 hits. Who's your cheap bet that you like here?
Let's speaking of Detroit, let's go Colt Keith.
Yeah, for what it's worth, the top like value, in my opinion, today is Norby, but obviously we don't take hitters from cores in our game. It makes it more fun. So give me Parker Meadows today to get 2 hits against Martin. Stack to score 6 or more runs. Who's scoring some runs today?
I'm going to go with the Toronto Blue Jays. They've been red hot lately, and I'm going to just enjoy seeing, even though this is a lost season, I'm just going to enjoy seeing all these young guns for the Blue Jays play absolutely terrific. So let's go with Toronto.
Yeah, I love getting 3 runs from this team. So give me the St. Louis Cardinals. They'll disappoint, but I mean the hitting conditions. I will say, like I did pull it up, and the hitting conditions do look good here. Any player props or pick 'em plays that you like today?
The Davis Martin, Ty Madden potentially over 4.5 strikeouts. I really like that call that you had there. But full disclosure, I haven't done a deep dive on any props, pick'ems, or bets yet.
All right, so the 3-pick parlay for today, in Florida, I cannot do this one yet because it's not up yet. And I'm very patiently waiting for props in this game. I have a single game parlay today. Those are always fun. Single game parlay. I don't know what the odds are. I just know all 3 of these bets are up on multiple sites, so you can get it. So maybe somebody in chat can tell me if they have their app pulled up. But in Florida, I'm waiting patiently for player props to come up. I have Kerry Carpenter over 1.5 total bases at plus 123. Riley Green over 1.5 total bases at plus 102. And Ty Madden over 4.5 strikeouts. That is on Caesars at minus 169. Those 2 odds that I gave you for the hitters props were on Caesars as well. I don't, like I said, have access to it. Florida's fun. It's so much fun. It's hot. I was trying to pull up scores and odds, but my browser is like, every time I have FanGraphs open, my browser doesn't like to work. So
I think
someone in chat.
A fun thing to do with that too would be like you do your whatever your main plan to spend on that. Let's say it's $10 on a parlay, $100, $5, whatever it is. Throw an extra $1 on there with that exact same parlay, but with Carpenter and Green to homer as well to make it a little more fun.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I hear you. I'll probably bet that are home runs just because I'm a madman anyway. But yeah. Any final thoughts before we get out of here?
No, it's kind of an ugly little slate, but it's a fun one as well. So I had planned, just because I don't have any shows Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday this week outside of the morning grind today. So I kind of planned on taking a little break from DFS, a little mental health break. But this is a fun little slate, so I might dive into this one and then take Tuesday, Wednesday off.
All right, there you go. That's going to wrap it up here for Monday. We are back on Tuesday talking baseball. Good luck, everyone. We'll see you then.